I would describe the feeling of home as a place that when you step inside the door, your worries just start to fade away.
Welcome to Style Stories, brought to you by Easy Living Interiors, helping you transform your space and create the feeling of home. Today's guest is someone who perfectly embodies the idea that your home should be a true reflection of who you are. David O'Brien is a creative director, interior designer and project manager at his family's business, RJ O'Brien Limited, and longtime supporter of Easy Living Interiors. David is known not just for his expertise in interior design and project management, but for his bold, creative approach to designing a home. His own home, The Black House, gained national attention as a finalist on RTÉ's Home of the Year. Beyond interiors, David shares his love of DIY, vintage finds and design inspiration on his own Instagram account. With his dog Teddy by his side, who even has his own miniature black house, David has built a home that feels unique and personal. I'm so excited to welcome here today in our very own studio, David O'Brien. Thank you so much for joining us. And how are you today?
I'm very well, and thanks very much for having me.
Delighted to have you here after 4 years working together, and this is your first time in our studio. So
I know, and it's amazing. The studio looks incredible. I can't believe it's been 4 years since we started working together.
I know, crazy. Lots of memories we can get into throughout. Great times. So I'll kick us off with some introductory questions.
Perfect.
Dave, we're so delighted to have you here today. Can you start by telling us a bit about your role at RJ O'Brien and what a typical day, if there is one, might look like for you?
I think you hit the nail on the head there with a typical day. There isn't one. I think it's a really varied job that I mostly really enjoy, and it kind of starts off with getting up out of bed and feeding my beloved dog Teddy, and then it's straight into office emails and kind of, I suppose, trying to combat any fires that might have been started over the last few days or day or two, and then, you know, it's very much, it can be a mix of client meetings. So for example, this morning, it was straight into a commercial project that we're working on, a dining room, trying to pick the perfect hue of white for the space, which sounds kind of ridiculous sometimes when you're saying it, but we had 10 different samples up on the wall, and sometimes it can't, you have to see it in person before you pick the right hue. A lot of the time it's site meetings. So you're arriving on site to just check in on building works to see how things are going. And it's usually, fun. You're meeting people every single day. It's always very varied. And a lot of the time you're problem solving, which is probably my favorite part of the job.
And as well, when you mentioned there about the hue, it's funny because I imagine if it was your own home, it's when it's someone else that you're designing for, there's an extra layer of, I suppose, detail, because there might be your own personal preference, but there's kind of a brief involved and you want to match what they're looking for. So I suppose you kind of have to balance personal taste with what maybe the client might want out of it. So I get it when it comes to 10 hues and swatches on the wall. Yeah. We've been there ourselves in our own studio. So I get it. As someone who's been surrounded by building and interiors from an early age, how did you find your way into design? Was it something you always loved?
I think I grew up in a very creative household. I'm one of five. So my eldest brother is 15 years older than me. So it's kind of quite a varied age group. And my mom and dad, my dad was a carpenter. My mom was a very dedicated homemaker. So she spent a lot of her time, trying to create a lovely, cozy space for us, and she was always evolving the house, and I suppose interior design at that time wasn't very popular, and she was using her own initiative around those things.
That's amazing. So I suppose did you always know that it was something you wanted to get into somehow?
I think from a really early age, I was watching those TV shows that everyone was, like Sarah Beanie's Property Ladder, yes, or Grand Designs. And I just loved the way that, for example, on Sarah's show, it would be, she would go in, she would look at the floor plan or the layout of the house, come up with a better solution to it, renovate it and flip it, and it was a very interesting process, and kind of the idea that you could change homes up to suit who was living there much better than what they were originally designed for.
Did you ever play The Sims?
No, do you know what? I have never played The Sims, but I have friends that were obsessed with The Sims. So it's very funny. I've never actually played them.
The building in The Sims is actually really good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can do a lot with it. But
yeah. I know people that used to design extensions using the Sims.
Yeah, it's like Home by Me.
Yeah,
that way. It's like Home by Me. It's actually you can do a lot with the build in The Sims.
And I think things like Grand Designs and those sort of shows, they were kind of new when I was a child, and sadly I was very young young watching those and love them.
Yeah.
Mixed in with Transformers cartoons and stuff like that as well. But again, it's things like, seeing houses that were completely different to what we grew up with.
Yeah.
The first few series of Grand Designs, it was mind blowing, to see all of these glass walls and creative spaces that weren't, I think in Ireland we grew up with a lot of houses that were built from plan books, the same houses being built, bungalows or 2 stories throughout Ireland, with very little, I suppose thought put into the site itself. It was just like copy and paste.
Yeah, they actually recently re-aired the first episode of Grand Designs.
Stop.
Yeah, it was like an anniversary special, and I know what you mean, because looking back you can see the quality of the video has changed. So you can see that it's representative of its time in how it was kind of shot. But you can also see that what they were doing in Grand Designs was totally new. And it was like, I think Irish people have kind of, we've become a lot more internationally minded in what we can do with our homes. But I think when Grand Designs first started, like back in the 90s, it was like incredible. It was like things we'd never seen before. And
it was kind of a case where the general public were opened up to what architects could create.
100%.
And our minds were broadened. All of a sudden, these things were attainable for us. Like Grand Designs, I suppose, allowed people to see what was possible in their own homes. A lot of the time, they go
potential. I think
way over budget.
Potential is the big word.
But I think it's even just taking snippets of it. Yeah, exactly. Potential or inspiration from it, and being like, oh, I could adapt my house to that, or I could connect my house a little bit more to the garden. Maybe not putting in a 20-foot slider, or but putting in French doors into the garden, so you have that lovely connectivity.
Totally. And I do love Kevin MacLeod's soliloquies. I love he's like ending what he's doing. He's
the perfect voice for it, doesn't he?
He's dramatic. Yeah. Like, the way he speaks about the homes. But I love Grand Designs. I binge watch it.
Story arc to it, isn't there? Like it's like you start off with the really blue-eyed couple coming in, kind of going, I'm able to do this for £150,000, and it's like £1 million at the end of the budget.
And then you can see them getting tired and you can see what they're going through. And I love, though, that it's not rose-tinted glasses in the show. It shows the reality, it shows the challenges, but then you always see the end result. And it's amazing.
And how stressful the process is. When you're renovating any part of your home, be it just painting a bedroom, or there's a lot of prep in it, there's a lot of thought put into it, and it's very stressful.
Totally.
And especially if you're doing a big build like they were.
Yeah, 100%. And then it's great to kind of, see, again, potential. So I love Grand Designs. It's one of my favourite binge watches, to be honest. RJ O'Brien is such a well-respected family business. What do you think sets your approach apart when it comes to managing residential projects?
I think it's communication, being really truthful. We try and plan way ahead of the project. So normally a client will bring me in maybe 9 months to a year before they're kind of starting the project. So we can kind of get down to the nitty gritty, so that when the builders start, so, when we arrive in, they're not being slowed down. There's no changes being made. Like, changes when things have started are expensive. So ideally, my part of my role is to, I suppose, negotiate between the client and the builders, and to kind of create something that we have a really natural plan going forward, and that they're not kind of, going, oh, we might just knock this wall or put in a new window here, or so on, so that the builder doesn't get frustrated, and so the build is actually quite smooth.
Yeah, I suppose, like you say, it's great to kind of establish a plan, and then you don't deviate.
This is it.
Because I know often when you're doing a build, you might only have plans, but then you have to make decisions of where are your sockets going and where are your sink, like, what's your utility, what's your plumbing. So definitely being on the same page from the very beginning just changes things completely.
100%. I have lost sleep over the placement of plug sockets multiple times. I have woken up in the middle of the night going, oh no, I forgot to tell them to put a socket there, but it's always before they've actually started the electrical work. But it's small things like planning down to where your sockets go, as you said, but it's also the lighting. You want 2 different types of lighting in your home, functional and atmospheric. You don't want to be kind of going into a stark house. You want to be able to just switch the switch and change from kind of lovely mood lighting to functional lighting when you're cooking the dinner or the kids are doing their homework or so on.
And when it comes to lighting, what is your approach? Would you recommend like a full lighting scheme? Like, are you kind of looking at, you know, the centralized lighting scheme now where you can have your room set and you can have presets and you can say, okay, this is my movie night lighting, this is my kitchen lighting. Do you do that kind of lighting scheme, or are you more fluid kind of
it's
approach?
a mix, and actually it depends on the client. I still like switching on a lamp. You know, I like
there's something in it.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Alexa, and I like you know, just being able to say, Alexa, turn on the lamps. But there's something lovely about going over and just switching it. You know, I think it's almost like switching off from work sometimes, that you're like, okay, I can turn off the main lights now, which is always off really. Never turn on the main lights.
Oh, the big light.
Yeah, the big light.
The big light.
I love that it's become a thing.
Yeah.
You know, big light energy. But
our big light is purely for effect. It's never on.
Yeah, but it never gives good lighting, and it's all, you know, downlighting isn't something that you want to sit in. You want lamp lights, you know. So for the most part, I think a lot of the time I'm thinking, you know, kitchen, dining area, functional lighting, you know. But in general, I do think it's a little bit more relaxed in planning. You need sockets in the right places. And things have moved on from, you know, the original 5-amp socket, which were wired to the wall. You switch from the wall to now smart sockets, you know, so you're saying, Alexa, turn on my lamps. But I do like the process of it.
I'm the same. It's like switching on the lamp, sitting down with a book. Yeah. Now it's the evening.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's I know what you mean. It's the sound for me.
Yeah, it's the click, isn't it?
Yeah. Love that. Have you had any off the wall briefs? It could be a client's idea that sounded really peculiar or unique. And as the project came together, did you learn something new seeing it evolve?
I suppose, yes, at times. I was working with a lovely couple last year who have a family of 4 kids, and her brief at the time, it was said in like kind of a joking way, but there was a serious undertone of Barbie Dreamhouse, and you know, I laughed because, you know, I'm not really a Barbie Dreamhouse type of person, but my role really is to create a cohesive design. Like, I'm not there to force my style on anyone, and you know, now I did have to tame it down, you know, because it's going to be, you don't want to walk into a space where, well, some people might, but pink carpets, pink walls, pink kitchen, you know, so it's just taking snippets of that person's, what they really want, and adding it to a kind of a calm space, you know. So for an open plan space, it's nice to keep things quite calm, quite neutral, you know, somewhere to relax. But then for her ensuite bathroom, we did pink terrazzo tiles, high gloss pink tiles on the bathroom shower area, and we made her dreams come true. So every morning she wakes up, she gets out of bed and goes into her dream bathroom, which is the most Barbie bathroom I'll ever design.
I love that.
But that we would, and have little snippets of maybe an accent pink throughout the house. So, you know, when she walks into our house, there's little bits of pink around the place, but it's not overkill, is what I would say.
That just reminds me so much of the famous line from Barbie. This is Barbie's dream house.
Yeah, and literally, I think Barbie was kind of out at the time.
Yeah.
So it was her inspiration.
Yeah.
And like, the bathroom is so much fun.
I love a fun bathroom.
Yeah, it's, I think, a WC, a utility room, and an ensuite sometimes. I kind of like to design ensuites quite calm because, you know, you're getting up in the morning and it's usually a functional space. But I think a WC and, you know, a utility room in particular, why not when you go in there? Because these are really mundane places, you know, and put your entire personality, your Pinterest dream inside here. You know, everyone has these Pinterest mood boards, and it's so funny. Clients will often send them to me, and they're so mismatched. You know, it's like Scandi, contemporary, traditional, and I say to them, "What is your favorite, and why don't we kind of just embrace that for the WC or for your utility room?" Like we did raspberry red utility room last year, and we did, like, you know, a candy pink, and every time they go in there they smile, you know, and I'm like, yeah, because you're folding clothes in there, you know, you want something to kind of,
that's so true, because it's very important that functional spaces still feel like they give you a sense of joy, you know, and like that. Okay, who finds joy in folding laundry? No one. But you can kind of create a space that makes you feel joy in that every 100%. Day. So I love that, and I want a Barbie Dreamhouse bathroom now. You've like, totally influenced me.
Every space should be kind of considered, and like, you know, don't say that'll do. You know, that's one of the big things that I say to clients at the beginning, especially if you're doing a full new build, so everything is brand new. Don't go into a store and be like, sure, that'll do for now. I'll get something nicer in a couple of years, because you won't. You know, it'll sit there and it won't bring you any joy. And like, even the small things like your toaster and your kettle, like, you know, if you go in and buy an amazing toaster or kettle, every single morning you put the toaster on and the kettle on, you'll be like giving you a little smile. Or it's down to like even things like scrubbing brushes, you know, buy nice scrubbing brushes. They don't have to be expensive, just something that is, when you see them in the kitchen, you know, that they're not like, oh God, look at that horrible yellow sponge. It's, you know, a nice wooden handle or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's so true with the kettle and the toaster, because I'm like murder for putting my kettle and toaster in the cupboard, because I'm like, I don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
So if it's something like a nice smeg, then you've got the best of both worlds.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the little things and the details, and like, everything adds up to make a space that feels functional, cohesive, but that you also love to see every day. Have you, that's what I just said, your own home, the Black House, has gained a lot of attention for its unique architectural design and incredible interior. There's also a real sense of peace there. How would you describe the feeling of home?
I would describe the feeling of home as a place that when you step inside the door, your worries just start to fade away. Everyone has busy lives, busy jobs, stressed, no matter what. I think people think interior design is a glamorous job, but can be really stressful because people are spending a lot of money and it's on their personal home. So, and nothing is reasonably priced anymore when it comes to building. So, they're very wound up about it. And so it can be stressful to come in. And I think when you get home, you want to go into a space that is just somewhere you can chill out and relax. And so that's really what I wanted to create. I wanted to come into a bright, airy space that was filled with plants and treasures that I've collected over many years. And, something that I suppose brings a smile to my face every single day.
Mm-hmm. And I love your artwork collection.
Oh, thank you.
I love it so much. Your dining space with the artwork, with your antique unit, it's just beautiful. It's really nicely curated and layered, and it really feels like you. Yeah.
I think you get, like, when you're decorating your home, you have this unique opportunity to make it feel like it's something bespoke to you. There is an element where people see things on Pinterest and try to recreate. And, yes, you have to buy a comfortable couch. You're going to be sitting on that every day. But some of the other things, I think it's really nice to have things that have some sort of sentimental meaning rather than just going out mass buying, going into a shop and buying loads of generic vases just to fill shelves. Instead, like, I would say people should shop their parents' house or their grandparents' house, and with permission, like, you always have to ask, but find something that is sentimental to them. And it might be something that just evokes just this lovely feeling from your childhood, like that you played with a figurine or a dinky or something like that as a child, and you were like, oh my God, I love that. And so when you're dusting those shelves, you get a lovely kind of memory flashback, know, and rather than just wiping something that has no meaning at all. Every single thing in that house, there's nothing that was just bought without purpose or thought put into it. And a lot of the stuff that I have are collected from travels. Like, I lived in Canada for nearly a year and a half. My suitcase, I emptied the clothes that I had and brought trinkets that I picked up in Goodwills and secondhand shops and, markets that we were visiting. And every single time I see them, it brings a little smile to my face. And I went traveling around America on my own backpacking, and I just picked up little bits from every state that I visited, and each one of those it's lovely to kind of, you don't think about those things every day, but sometimes when you're dusting, it's just like, oh, I remember.
And I think people underestimate the power of a thing to, like, bring you back to something.
Totally.
Do you know, when you can see it, and it's a personal kind of memento of things you've experienced in the places you've seen. So
absolutely.
You should definitely have those things.
It's also really interesting for your guests. Like, when we bring people into our homes, people will tend to pick up things, and if it's interesting or if it's unusual, they'll be like, oh, where did you get this? And you have a lovely story about it. Oh, I got that when I was in San Francisco, or I got that when I was in a flea market in Bordeaux, or I got it on Dundee or Facebook Marketplace. And you might have a story attached to the person that was selling it. Sometimes they can it can be real characters that you arrive to their house and you're kind of going, oh, but again, it adds a little bit of I suppose depth to your home.
100%. And there's a reason we call them conversation pieces, because 100%. They start conversations.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And it's one of those things that people want to know a little bit more about you. And sometimes when you're in a generic home, it can just feel soulless. And often one of the questions that I get from clients is, how do I make it cozy? How do I make it more me? And it's certainly not by going into like a big supermarket store or something like that and buying, like generic things. But you still have to buy comfortable sofas and armchairs and stuff like that. But, adding just a little bit of extra interest.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. So next up, we have design dilemma. So we've asked our followers to ask you what design dilemmas they need some advice on. So we had to pick just one. So Karen asks, "Hi Dave, looking for advice on how to use darker colours in smaller spaces. How can you introduce these without overwhelming the room?"
I think if you're using darker colors, that's a very good question. Like in a small space, color blocking is your best friend when it comes to darker colors. I think if you're lucky enough to have a second sitting room, I think the dream at the moment for most people is an open plan living, kitchen, dining, and then a second sitting room. I think that's what COVID taught us. I think COVID's like many years ago now. It's scary to think.
Yeah.
And people want that second space that isn't maybe used as much, but it's kind of to be able to separate from our partners, our children, have a little bit of quiet time. And those spaces are really nice spaces to use dark colors in. So I really like to use quite bold greens, navies, sometimes blacks. Browns are really popular at the moment in those spaces. And if you color block that space, so for example, you're doing the skirtings, the walls, the ceiling, it can be really cozy and atmospheric. It's more, I suppose, when it comes to dark colors, you want to use them in spaces that you're not in a lot. So, or it's evening time. So, you're creating that lovely cozy cocoon kind of feeling watching a movie, you have fire lighting, or else in like somewhere like a WC where you can go, I'm only going in there for 2 minutes. Your guests are getting a little surprise when they open the door. Other options will be to bring it in your furniture. So pick a chocolate brown velvet sofa to, add that depth and warmth to a space. Keep the walls quite fresh in that side of things. But in general, it's only paint. That's what I say to people. Sometimes you can get really bet down in the concept of painting a room and kind of, overkilling the thought process. Yes, you should put samples on the wall. And a good thing is to paint large pieces of card and put them up on the wall and move them around the room throughout the day. So you get to see it in different light. But it's only paint at the end of the day. So like if it's not a massive room and you're not getting professional painters in to do it, it's one weekend, go for it.
Mm-hmm. You can have a lot of fun with paint as well.
So much fun.
Yeah.
And I think we're moving away from that kind of Scandi mid-century feeling at the moment, and darker tones are really coming back, warmer neutrals. Mm-hmm. So we kind of went from more stark whites into kind of more warm neutrals, and now even things like, I can't believe I'm saying it, but in the last 2 years, dark brown is really after...
The mocha mousse of it all.
Oh my God, it's crazy. Because if you said dark brown a few years ago to people, their face would turn. And we did a Project Greens restaurant inside in Cork. And I remember presenting it as like this was kind of before, we'll say, brown had really started to come in. And I remember presenting it to the owners and the management team. And brown, they were a bit like unsure, but they really followed through in the process and committed to it. And I think I had about maybe 50 different tones of brown up on the wall.
It's amazing.
Until we found the right one,
There's something very sophisticated about a brown. I can't believe this is coming up. I'm watching Mad Men at the moment.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people are rewatching Mad Men, and there's a real dark palette, and it's kind of through the like mid-century woods and the furniture, but it feels sophisticated and mature. So I love the kind of the dark, deeper palettes that we're seeing. And
we're moving away from that kind of, teak was super popular, that mid-century furniture. I still love it. I trends come and go. So like if you love a piece, I always say stick by it, or it'll work in your space, even if you're changing it up. With dark furniture is really coming back, that kind of Victorian style furniture. And it's really reasonably priced at the moment. So if you're looking to buy now, because it's kind of like the mid-century pieces. Mid-century pieces were super reasonably priced before they took off, and now a sideboard that was, literally you could get it for 50 quid a few years ago is now €1,000, and I think the same stuff will happen with the kind of dark walnut Victorian style furniture.
Definitely. So thank you, Karen. There's a lot in that, so basically don't be afraid, there's lots you can do, so go for it.
Exactly.
Next up, it's time for Behind the Style. Dave, this is all about you, from your early days growing up around the family business to designing one of the most recognisable homes in Ireland. We want to hear about the key moments that shaped your style, your passion for design, and how you brought your own vision to light at the Black House. It's such a unique and striking home. What was the vision you had when you first started designing it?
I think it was one of those passion projects. I had always envisioned myself buying a period house by the sea and renovating it. But that was just out of my budget. And I was very fortunate to have inherited a site from my parents. So I had a blank canvas to start with. And I think when you're building, you are incredibly privileged to be able to go, I can build a house that's bespoke for me, and that's what I went into it thinking that, so like everybody, I started, I think at a very young age, I knew I wanted to build something quite unique. And then as I got older, I loved black architecture, it's something that wasn't really being used in Ireland until recently. But I had always admired it being used in California or New Zealand, or I went on a trip to Iceland and I saw a lot of houses that were painted quite dark and used a very similar material to what I use, which is the corrugated steel. And I loved the idea of creating something that was quite vernacular. So like if you think of old Irish barns, or even after thatch was removed from cottages, they started putting on that, galvanized is what they'd call it, on the roofs, because it was far more resistant, weatherproof. And I loved the idea of kind of embracing that kind of vernacular kind of architecture without, and incorporating it into quite a contemporary frame. So I think I took inspiration from everywhere. And I remember meeting my architect and saying that I wanted a black house, and they were kind of looking at me and they were like, are you sure you won't go anthracite grey or, a lighter grey? Yeah. And I was like, no. And even when they were designing the renders for the house, they had it with a white facade on the front and grey cladding. And I was like, no, we need to change that to black. So it was one of those, I suppose that's a passion project. I'm not sure if I'm answering.
Yeah, no, and it's really paid off. But I love what you say about being representative of like the history of Ireland, because there was a gorgeous home in the Great House Revival this year, and it was an old cowshed. And in the episode, they went and they spoke to a historian in the area, and as it transpired, the home was actually a really important historical site due to like the person who'd lived there, and it was near to kind of an old stately building. So they restored literally a cowshed that was just a brick structure, but they used, the original brick, and they got the brick restored, and it's bringing that old historical sense in. And you've done that as well in the way that, like, yes, you've a super modern home, but I can see that vision of bringing that kind of farmy kind of countryside living in a really modern way that feels like something totally different.
It was kind of meant to look like a barn mixed with an air hanger mixed with a shed, like as in, and that you could see it on a farm. And I love black as a color. I think it's quite a neutral. It fades away a lot of the time. So people are often asking how, to bring contrast into quite a neutral palette. And dark black, like wood grain kind of materials, often do that. And I love the way it just sits into its landscape. Like if you look into nature, you don't see that much white. You see white clouds, but in general, if you look into the hedgerow, it's greens, blacks, greys, browns. And I wanted something that would sit on the site, and depending on how the sun was going to hit it, that it would be quite striking, or else it would vanish into the actual site itself.
You've done it perfectly.
Oh, thanks.
And even just the shape and the architectural design of it, it's incredible.
We really wanted to take advantage of the site. So, I really wanted that gorgeous westerly sun. So the back of the house is all glass. And in the evening time, when you come back from work, again, it comes back to that kind of safe place. The light is just streaming in. And even on the darkest of days, it's just a lovely bright space. And
you really mastered kind of the indoor living as well. Kind of with your door that goes out onto the patio. Like it feels like, the perfect social space for hosting, as well as being like, correct for the sun movements and all of that. So it's really balanced, kind of a lot of different needs. So yeah, congratulations.
Oh,
I guess amazing. And I think you probably started a lot of trends here, and I think you probably inspired a lot of people again as well in your own way. It's like we talk about grand designs. I think you've done that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I think a couple of years ago, you see the black houses are becoming really popular now. And I think people see the interest in how they sit in their landscape. And, that connection to the garden is probably the number one thing that I really wanted to do when I was creating my home. Now that my patio is a DIY project from COVID. So I'm always like, people are like, how did you afford to do that? Because, but I think you have to think outside the box. Building is so expensive now. And sometimes you will run out of budget, and for me, I was like, I don't want to be looking out at a concrete mess. So it was just kind of, getting a load of pallets together, or scaffolding planks, and creating beds, and creating something that was nice to look out on. And I think when it comes to trends and stuff, trends will always come and go. But if you love something, stick with it. And you can always adjust what you have to the trend.
Exactly. Little bits and pieces like accessories.
Yeah.
Leopard print cushion. And,
exactly.
It's 2025,
Yeah. And even like black cushions here. I mean, if you said black cushions a few years ago to people would be like, oh, I can't put those on my couch, but they work so well.
Yeah, Lois, thank you. Lois is our studio stylist, and she's done an incredible job here creating this gorgeous set. Yeah. So well done, Lois. And thank you for sharing, Dave, all about your home build. Your grand piano as kitchen island is iconic. Can you tell us the story behind that piece and how it became such a central part of your design?
Well, it's so funny. That piece was very much bought as off the cuff, is what I would describe it as. I was at an antique auction with my brother, and I just saw it. I was like, oh my God, that's stunning. A rosewood piano from the 1890s, and it was still playing. And I just was like, wow, look at the size of it. Look at the proportions of that. And I said, I have to own it. How do I get this now? And how do I plan for this? So the entire house was actually built around that piano, which is so strange when you say it out loud. But that was probably the core piece to creating the style for that space. And I saw that piece and fell in love. And it definitely was a buy that wasn't practical. I didn't have a house at the time. I had nowhere to store it. So my sister, very fortunately, she had a spare, a room that she could put it into for me. And no one else was bidding on it. And I remember just looking at it going, that's going to go back to a damp warehouse now or somewhere, because it was a house sale that had happened and the house had sold. And I said, that'll probably be destroyed. And so I kind of thought, how could I create something out of that? And it just clicked. It just was like, oh, I could make it into a kitchen island. I said it to my brother and he was like, that's a great idea. We measured the heights. It was the right height for an island. And I said, okay, I can repurpose this into something different while still having the same use. Like, it still plays. I had it professionally tuned last year. I still have parties where it's lovely, where people gather around it, and I have glass on top to protect the actual piano itself, so people put their drinks on top of it. But then I have some friends. My friend Sarah is a professional pianist, and she really
must be amazing.
She had sore fingers after playing it for a while, because it's original ivory keys, and we have some great parties there.
I was going to say, because the best parties, let's say like a wedding, they end up in the bar.
Yeah.
And there's a piano player. It's piano man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can imagine like the end of the night when you're having your house parties must be amazing.
Oh, it's great crack. And people tend to gather around it. I wanted a space, because it's an open plan space. I think sometimes people become really preoccupied on counter stools and counter space, whereas I wanted people to gather around it and stand. And a place to serve people, so if you're having a buffet, you can pop it up there. A place for people to play music, a place for people to put their drinks, especially when you have a dining room table so close that if you're looking for comfort, you have that there as an option. And it's a real conversation starter. I think I remember when I did Home of the Year, I really didn't expect it to cause so much controversy. And actually it went viral and it went into newspapers all over the world.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It went into Brazil, a newspaper in Brazil that said, it didn't specify that it was an Irish Home of the Year. It said Home of the Year finalist or something like that. And so I was getting all these Spanish comments and Portuguese comments from other countries in South America. And then it went to Spain as well, and it went to the UK, and it was so interesting that it was such a Marmite piece. But I love that. When you're designing your home, you shouldn't be designing it for anyone else. You shouldn't be kind of going, oh, I really hope they like it when they come into it. You should be designing it for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you live with it, and you see it, and I really love that it was almost like a piece that you saved.
Yeah,
that, it's going to be gone, it's going to get destroyed. So I actually love that you saved that as well.
And like the piano is a full grand piano. It's huge. Like it wouldn't just sit in a corner. It would take up. For most people, it's not possible to just have that in a room dedicated just to being a grand piano. And so I wanted to have, I suppose, make it a central point. But also not remove what it was, Now it doesn't play. It's 130 or 40 years old. It's not like, concert quality, but it still holds a tune. So that's all I wanted it for.
Oh, I'm obsessed. I love it. Your home feels incredibly personal. Was it important to you that the interiors told a story, and how do you think others can achieve that sense of character in their own homes?
Yeah, I think like from the minute you step inside my home, I wanted people to kind of be inquisitive. So again, what we were talking about is kind of conversation pieces and it was a collection. My brother brought me to my first antique auction when I was probably about 7. And I kind of fell in love with old things. And one of the things when you're building a new house is how do you bring character into it? And I wanted to create something that was contemporary, because I'm not a big fan of kind of like a faux Georgian style house. Just wasn't my taste. And I didn't want to kind of create something that wasn't actual period property, but I wanted to fill it with my collections. I call them my treasures. Since, I was that strange child that at 15 was getting like an antique settle for their birthday. People I remember people were like, you're gathering all this junk, but it was so brilliant when I had a house because I was able to fill the house. There was never a point when I moved in that I didn't have something for each space, and a lot of the house was designed around some of the pieces that I had. But I love the history behind it. I like the fantasy of going, I wonder who owned that. Especially as a child, when I was 7, I was like, I wonder who owned that. I wonder where it came from. And you create this narrative in your head. But I love to find out where the pieces actually did come from, So they're the best bits that you can kind of, like, I have pieces in my house that are 17th century. So like 400 years old now, and then all the way up to something that's quite modern. Like I have an easy living sofa that I've had for 6 years.
Astoria.
Yeah, and you know what?
It has story in it, Dave. Astoria.
Yeah. And like, actually, it's just a great piece. It's so natural in the environment. Doesn't draw too much attention, and allows all the antique pieces to kind of do the talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like that you say talk, because rooms do talk, walls talk. That's amazing.
You're decorating from the floor up. People always forget flooring, rugs, everything is creating a story. So if you want to keep quite a neutral palette, and you want to bring in some color, Persian style rugs are fantastic for bringing a big boost of color into the space without taking over.
And rugs now have become quite inexpensive.
Yes.
Rugs would have been kind of, I guess, I had a conversation recently with someone about I've got dogs, so I couldn't have a rug, but now rugs have gotten inexpensive that it is accessible. Yeah. And there are rugs that are from Cocoon who we actually stock. There's machine washable rugs now.
It's incredible.
And they're at a really, really good price point, and they have such a power in a room in terms of zoning spaces off, in terms of bringing colour in terms of, putting one by your bed and you wake up in the morning and there's that tactile element. Yeah. So rugs should never be underestimated.
And I think, like you mentioned there, zoning, there is nothing that zones a space, especially because a lot of our homes are open plan now, like a rug. You really want to anchor the living room as a living room, the dining room as a dining room. And what can do that? A rug under those pieces of furniture.
Easy peasy, roll it out.
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's move into the mood board, where we explore what's inspiring you right now. From antique treasures to architectural details, your home is full of character and creativity. We're curious about how your style has evolved over time and what kinds of materials, colours or ideas are catching your eye these days. We also know you love to travel, so we'll dive into that too. If you had to describe your style in 3 words, what would they be?
Maybe unique, curated, and a mix. I don't think there are a massive amount of rules in interior design. I think it's meant to be challenged. You can kind of, there's the basics, that you're starting off with, but you can think outside the box, and that's often how the best things come together, and it is kind of like finding pieces that bring you so much joy every single day.
I like what you said about rules, because even I think guidelines in interior design are great, but even the guidelines are kind of it's even numbers, put things in groups of 3s, because the eye actually doesn't want the eye doesn't want uniform. The eye wants different layers that feel like your eye is moving naturally around a room. 100%. There's layers of interest. So even when we were setting up this room, we were like, okay, right, we're going to put the olive tree here. That's going to frame our front, but then we need something in the background, and we need to balance everything, and it's that continuity of colour palettes. Yeah. So again, it's guidelines, but there's a lot of wiggle room within those.
100%. And I think proportions are incredibly important. You know that I always say you measure it 3 or 4 times. You mark it out on the ground. Like I do 3D visuals for clients, and like they're to scale, but there is nothing like seeing the piece marked out on the ground in those spaces.
Absolutely.
And then there's no mistakes. I had a client not that long ago who bought a sofa without measuring her room, and so it was cheaper to move the doorway than to send the sofa back. It was a bespoke sofa, so we ended up moving the doorway. Yeah, but look, it worked out very well.
I was going to say there's so many times our customers have to take their windows out to get their sofas in, because they're like, this is my sofa, I want this sofa, but I physically can't get into there, so the windows come out.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it, to think? And that's how they deliver furniture in mainland Europe. Like if you're in Brussels, they take your windows out and they bring it up by crane and pop it in, so it's crazy.
But modular furniture, hey? The modular furniture of it all, like it's amazing, because a sofa, you can literally build it bespoke to your room.
Absolutely.
I love
and
modular.
Separate it, you know, so you can, if you're having friends over, you can separate the spaces. Like sometimes I think an L-shaped sofa can be difficult if you're having friends over, because everyone's kind of sitting on top of each other. They're far more built for cozy nights in, but some of the modular sofas you can literally just split, so you can give them that little bit of space.
And they're amazing as well, because just a personal anecdote, my family has a modular sofa, and we moved recently, but the living room is downsized, so one of the pieces of the modular sofa is now in storage, and it's the same sofa, but a piece was taken out.
Fantastic.
And it's still perfect in the room, so you can move them as your needs and as you change, or if you're upsizing, downsizing, whatever it may be. But yeah, thank you for sharing your 3 words. Where do you draw inspiration from? Are there places, books, eras, or even people that have shaped your design instincts?
I think a big shout out to my brother Aidan. He definitely inspired me from a young age. Aidan was very interested in kind of antique pieces, and I think that completely wrapped itself around me. And I would say I just love the craftsmanship of the past. You know, we're definitely seeing it again now. I think that kind of mass production is slowing down, and it seems to be more pieces that last a lot longer for us. You know, so if you're buying a sofa, it's 8 to 10 years is what you're hoping to get out of it, you know, without having to change. And I think, but I love the craftsmanship of, you know, pieces that are 100 years old. Like if they've lasted 100 years, and the fact that they can potentially last another 100 years, you know. I think for inspiration wise, you know, I take it from everything. I love the fact that we've moved on from just focusing on the rooms and thinking about gardens now, and how we bring the outside in, because we do work from home or we work from our offices, and we're inside a lot. Like the previous generations were outside working the land and kind of got to enjoy nature, and so we're stuck inside and not really being part of that anymore. So I love the fact that that's where things are moving to. How do we connect our garden? How do we connect my office to the garden? You know, every element of it. Yeah,
and we cannot not mention your houseplant collection.
Oh yeah.
How many is it again?
I have 120 houseplants, and it started off with maybe 10. But actually, I'll tell, like, genuinely, a top tip for anyone: how do you make your home feel more expensive? It's hearts, houseplants, and lamps. 3 different things. Done. Yeah. And it's how to make something feel a little bit softer, or inject color into a space that might feel a little bit dull. You know, you're popping a really strong pop of green into the space, and it feels quite natural. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel forced. Like I would say, a feature wall that sometimes can feel like, does this feel like it's just sticking out like a sore thumb in the space? But I have 120 now. If people are always like, how do you mind them? I have an alarm set in my phone for every Thursday night. I have nothing on Thursdays, and
it's Thursday.
Yeah, so tonight 6:30, my alarm will go off, and I'll water all the plants at the same time. But there's not that much minding in them. Like, I think you do have to do a little bit of research on the plants. You know, what will they thrive in your space? Like, you know, if you have a completely south-facing wall of glass, you know, not many plants are going to survive the sun on them the entire day. Or if it's north-facing, you know, some plants need a lot more light. So you just do a quick Google. But I love to use them as pieces of like living sculpture.
Totally.
So I love to put them on the walls of projects in my own house. They're all over the walls, on top of the kitchen. In my bedroom, any shelf that is available, there's a plant going in there. But it just softens it. Like you were talking about the rules of even, like, you know, design of threes. You know, sometimes it can look very structured. You know, if you have 3 vases and they're all 3 different sizes, it can still look quite structured. And how to soften that is just literally a fern sitting next to it.
Love a fern.
You know, and it just softens the whole.
Your fern though, it's, you can see on your page, like your fern has just grown and grown and grown.
Sideshow Bob, yeah. He, and that was being, I got that off Tundle for free. So it was it wasn't in great condition when I got it. It's so interesting. Like a lot of my pieces, I suppose, have come from antique shops, flea markets, car boots. Budget was absolutely a big part of it. I couldn't afford brand new for everything. And even plants sometimes are being given away. And
I just didn't know you get plants on Dundee. Anything else I knew, but plants.
I think it's a really good way. Like that lady.
That's amazing though, because like the plant, if you don't need it, don't want it, it will die. And that's pass it on. Wow. Okay, my mind's just been expanded.
Yeah. People are always asking about the ferns, how I mind them, and to be honest, there's no trick. I just have a very it's westerly light they love, and my room faces westerly, or west. So they just thrive in that space.
Yeah. Do you have any bonsais?
I don't have any bonsais. I had a collection of cactuses or cacti, but they've died in me, imagine. So I thought they'd be the easiest to keep. They have a short period of life, I think. They're not that long.
Bonsais are very challenging. Yeah. I've set myself that challenge and failed every time, so I haven't cracked that one yet.
Yeah. It's so funny. A lot of people are asparagus ferns are really difficult as well. But another thing is just to cut off anything that's dead.
Fact about it. Yeah.
People seem to think that the brown will come back, but it won't. It's actually draining the energy from the plant.
Exactly. It's time to go. Are there any materials, colours or textures that you find yourself drawn to time and time again?
Yeah, I think at the moment oak. I think oak is so timeless. Like if you think, we're doing a renovation that's about 25 years old, and they haven't touched the house since they originally decorated, and it has original white oak plank floors, and we're not touching them. Whereas if the dreaded grey laminate was down from the 2016 to 2020, they'd be ripped up straight away. So I think when you're kind of thinking, like I'd often think of timeless design when designing a home, especially for the bones of the house. You want them to last a long time. And so, picking doors, floors, anything that's permanent, and try and think quite timeless with those, because the furniture can be changed up. So, you might fall in love with an armchair that will completely change the vibe of a room. But then that might fall out of trend, or you might fall out of love with that, and you might want to change it back to something else. And as long as you have good basics, you'll never go wrong.
Love that. You're a big fan of live music and festivals. What draws you to these, and do you have any favourite memories or places you've been?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. I love Primavera in Barcelona. I think Barcelona is one of my favourite cities. I go back nearly every year. I don't think I've ever not seen something new in the city or come across a new restaurant that I've loved. I think they're great fun. You're going with your friends, and it's a big blow up. And I think jobs can be quite stressful. And I also think you're there, and it re-energizes. Anyone in creative industries will know, like sometimes you can start feeling like the creative juices are not flowing. So something like that will completely re-energize you. And the architecture over there is so beautiful, and the people are so nice. And I just love live music, and I think it's a great human experience.
Have you a favorite concert you've ever been to?
I went to I was thinking about this actually not that long ago. I went to Florence and the Machine in Toronto, and it was only 150 people in the room, and it was I remember getting a bus. She was huge in Europe at the time, so we knew who she was a massive star, but she wasn't really big in Toronto or America at the time. So there was only 150 people in there, and it was the tiniest sweatbox of a room is all I would describe it as. And she was incredible. It was like we were maybe 2 or 3 feet away from her, and just to hear her sing, it was amazing.
It's insane, because I saw her in Cork last summer.
Oh, I did too.
But like she's obviously huge now. But
amazing,
her voice, the energy, the way she runs.
How they get insurance for that?
Literally, I'd say there is no insurance. I'd say it's just because when she was doing the show in Cork, it was like she just broke her ankle. And then she popped up at Taylor Swift in London
and was running
in the
around
Eras
as well.
Tour. Oh my god!
And she's jumping up on speakers, and she's jumping like she's
energy.
Kind of down in the crowd, but she really loves what she does, and she gives it to the audience, like I said, she really gives it all to the audience. So she was fantastic.
Amazing. And the lineup for Primavera,
it's amazing.
Barcelona is incredible. Chapel Roan?
Yeah, Chapel Roan, Sabrina Carpenter, Charlie XCX.
All of the gals.
Yeah. And there's I saw Blur there maybe 2 years ago.
Wow.
They were amazing.
Yeah.
And you see what I love is the mix. Like CMAT is playing this year, so I can't wait. And it seems to be a CMAT summer, as everyone keeps saying.
Yes.
And it's lovely to see Irish artists absolutely blowing up at the moment. So I can't wait.
Oh, it'll be amazing. I have FOMO. We've talked about how travel has influenced your home, from the memorable trip to Iceland that helped shape the Black House to your love of vintage markets. Are there places you visited recently that are feeding into your style or creativity right now?
Yeah, I was in Bordeaux last September, and the lovely thing is there's Cork flights to Bordeaux, there's Dublin flights to Bordeaux, but I was blown away. I have to say, it was one of the most, I'd never been there before. It was one of the most beautiful cities that I'd ever been to. And there was just amazing vintage markets. There's a flea market on the Sunday, and I remember I just bought so much we'll say 19th century marble that I was frisked at the airport on the way back. They were all in my backpack because I was worried they'd be too heavy for my main suitcase. And I think they didn't know what to do with this marble inkwell that I had bought, black marble or marble apple that I'd bought. But I was completely blown away by it. And I was, it's just, they have such amazing pieces that we wouldn't have here, or they've just, French, I suppose France has just a huge history of being wealthy,
right.
So they have some incredible pieces over there. And it was really inspirational when I went there, and just walking down the streets, and the food and the people were so nice there as well. But highly recommend.
And the language and the culture.
And the wine.
And the wine, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, let me start again.
Yeah.
Wine, language, culture.
Yeah.
In that order. When you're sourcing vintage furniture, whether for yourself or a client, what do you look for?
I think that's, it's very interesting. It depends on if it's for a client. It very much depends on the brief. What sort of feeling do they want to evoke in the room? I'm usually looking for star pieces. That's what I would describe it as. Like something that will be instantly draw your eye when you walk into the room, add a feeling to the room. So I think I mentioned it already, but Victorian furniture, especially burr walnut or mahogany, there's just such richness to it. And at the moment I have a real terrible habit of collecting chests of drawers, Victorian chests of drawers. It used to be chairs, and now it seems to be chests of drawers. So I have at least, I'd say, 3 spare chests of drawers that maybe go to clients' homes in the future, but I just like to admire them at the moment. But something like that adds such depth to a room.
What are your thoughts on mixing old and new? How do you make it feel cohesive rather than chaotic?
Yeah, I don't think there's any major rules when it comes to that. I think you have to play with it. So it's often shopping your own house, or you're moving things around in the space, and sometimes I laugh sometimes. I think clients are looking at me like I'm crazy because I'm moving their couch a half an inch forward and a half an inch back and a half an inch forward and a half inch to the side, and they're looking at me and I'm like, wait, now you'll see it. And you just have to find the right spot for the piece. In general, when you're buying kind of like secondhand pieces, especially if it's on Facebook Marketplace or Done Deal, if you love it, you kind of have to strike. But if it's in an antique shop, I think there is the 24-hour, 48-hour rule where you leave it and hope that no one buys it. And if you're still thinking about it 48 hours later, you pick it up. And I think if you are thinking about it 48 hours later, you love it, at that point. What's lovely about things like polished concrete, which I have in my own home, or, neutral floors, like an oak floor, I would consider quite a neutral floor. You can bring in the accent colors in those floors. So the knots, for example. So dark woods work very well with oak, and they add lovely contrast to the space. So I think, you have to be wary of what materials you have in the space. So you don't want to be bringing in pine, like raw pine with oak floors, for example. I think those types of blonde woods can clash. But if you go for a a walnut or a mahogany, it can just really bring up the floor actually, and add to the space. I think in general, rugs, can bring everything together. A nice neutral rug will allow you to be very flexible in what you use in the space. So whether it's mid-century, and in my own home, there's a real mix. I have a lot of mid-century pieces, I have Victorian pieces, I've, even older pieces than that again, and then contemporary pieces mixed in. White walls are fantastic as well.
Yeah.
And I still love white. I know we're kind of moving on from that trend into more neutrals and more warmer tones. I still love white. I think,
love white as well, yeah.
It's lovely and fresh.
In our studio.
Yeah, and what's nice about it is it allows the furniture to do the talking, and it doesn't, we'll say, hide anything, as in it's not overwhelming when you go into the space. Now, I do love the darker colours as well.
And a white wall will let you do what you want to do. It'll go with anything. So there's a lot of freedom and flexibility. And then that's how you can bring in all of the layered pieces without it feeling
totally chaotic. And bring art onto if you want to bring colour into your space, art on the wall, there are no rules with art. I genuinely would say everything mixes well. Like a good rule is probably trying to keep the frames similar.
Right.
I love the shadow box frames, like the white wooden shadow box frames around the art. So again, they're not drawing your eye away from the art. But there's no harm with, you can mix in Victorian gilt frames. It just has, it's one of those things that doesn't have a rule.
It's just, I think, experimentation. And just go 100%. For it. And like you say, when you're kind of thrifting or vintage buying, it will go.
And don't be afraid to move things around. Often when I go into clients' houses for the first time, they haven't touched the house in 5 years. They haven't moved a piece of furniture around, and a lot of the time it's me actually just moving pieces around to see if they work better in a different space to create a better flow.
Flow is everything.
Sometimes they're just amazed that you're moving the couch to the opposite wall, and then they're like, oh my god, that's completely opened up the room.
No, definitely, don't be afraid. I suppose again, what I keep going back to is just go for it. For anyone just starting out, what's one tip for beginning their own collection of secondhand or unique pieces? Would it be go on Facebook Marketplace? Would it be go to your car boot sale? Go into an antique store?
Definitely. I think Facebook Marketplace, done deal adverts. I think have a look at ideally auctions if you can. There's a great website called Easy Live Auctions, and that has, if you put in Ireland in that, it'll show you all the Irish auctions. And don't be frightened to kind of bid on something in Donegal, for example. Like they'll have courier services, that aren't usually crazy expensive to be able to bring them down to where you live. And charity shops. Some of my best buys were car boot sales. And just as long as you love the piece. And again, like the problem with when you're buying in these places, you have to kind of buy them straight away.
Yes.
But don't forget you can sell them as well.
Yeah.
So like I have a rule in my own home that I love collecting. It's my hobby, and I love looking and I love searching and I love the thrill of the find, the high of finding something that you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I found this for €100 and it's worth €1,000. But if I buy a piece, I try and sell a piece in general. So if I
one in, one out.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so if I really want a new armchair and I don't have the space for it, I'll try and sell I'll buy the new armchair on Facebook Marketplace or wherever, and then I'll sell the old armchair. And they'll always sell, someone will buy it. And it just allows you to mix up the room as you evolve as well.
It's not too different to, I suppose, a wardrobe.
No, exactly.
Vintage. Vintage.
Yeah.
Oh, obsessed. Yeah. My shoes were actually vintage €5.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah.
I love vintage. Okay, next up is our quick fire round. Okay. It's time for a quick fire round. We'll ask you 5 quick questions to get your top tips, favourite things and style preferences. No need to overthink it. This round is about first instincts. Who is your dream dinner guest? Celebrity, musician, actor, designer? It can be anyone, dead or alive.
I think it will be Graham Norton. He's a Cork man, which I love as well, and I would just say he'd be so interesting, and I'd also sign any NDA so I could get all the background of all the celebrities he's had interviewed over the years, and who are the difficult ones and who are the kind of, we'll say, nicer ones. He also has some amazing homes. I saw a lot of them going on the market recently. His house in New York was amazing, and I just think what an interesting person to invite into your home and have a chat with, and he just seems really nice.
I love the thing he does where he throws people off the seat.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
Oh, I'm going.
What is your favourite time of year to decorate your home? Is it summer? Is it Christmas?
I love Christmas. I think since we were kids, we were always really excited about doing the tree, and that hasn't changed. my sister was brilliant. My sister Katrina was brilliant at starting the Christmas excitement a bit early and going into the local shops and buying some ornaments. And, I think I take massive inspiration from her. And I think that's my favorite time of year because it changes the whole feeling of the house. And I would say in general, my style would be quite minimal. Like I suppose there's a lot of stuff in the house, but there's not a huge amount of. It's not maximalist, And at that time of year, I think the rules go out again, so I can fill the tree to the absolute max with decorations, and I want it to be as traditional as possible. And it's not about contemporary. It's not about anything. It's not about style. I just want to fill it. So I try and buy pieces as when I go traveling as well, if there's any Christmas ornament. Or sometimes I just take something that isn't a Christmas ornament at all and it just goes straight on the tree.
I love that. One of the girls that works here has a tree, but it's teddy bears. Every year her mum has kept all her teddy bears from childhood. Amazing. And they all go on the tree. And also I saw your house became the White House in the snow.
Oh, yeah. I love when it snows because it looks kind of spooky almost even as well. But yeah, it definitely was. This year we had lovely kind of snowy weather.
We did. One piece of furniture you couldn't live without.
It's definitely my Chesterfield. I picked up. I bought that off Dundeal. It was an amazing bargain. It's a 19th century leather Chesterfield. It's tan leather. It's kind of an orange tan. And I remember seeing it on Dundeal, but it was way out of my budget. And I saved it and I was looking I woke up one Saturday morning, opened up the apps, and there it was, and it was reduced to €500. And it was in Galway, and just the nicest lady. I messaged her. I was like, I'll take it straight away. And she was like, oh, there's lots of messages, but you're the first. So I was like, brilliant. And she said to me, look, do you want to come up and see it? And I was like, I won't be able to get up to Galway this weekend. So she videoed every inch of it and sent it on to me. And I was like, I'll take it. So I got a courier to bring it down. And I sit in it every evening. It's just my favorite spot in the house. And it's so comfortable. And it just brings me a huge amount of joy.
I love a Chesterfield. So
it's timeless.
Yeah, exactly. What is the best bargain you've ever found?
Oh, well, I've gotten lots of things for free on Facebook Marketplace and Dundeal. I think I bought an amazing mid-century drinks cabinet that has like this gorgeous burr wallet on the front, and that was free. That was up on Facebook Marketplace for free. And one of the amazing things when I went to see it was there was a light inside where the drinks cabinet is, and it had never been switched on. So the plug was still in its wrapper 50 years later. The parents had never taken it out of its wrapper and plugged it in. So I was the first person to turn on the light. And it was in absolutely perfect condition. And sadly, the person's parents had passed away and they were just clearing the house. But you will come across bargains like that if you're looking for them. People always say, how do I come across these things? And it's really dedication. If you spend the time looking, you will come across them. It's a bit of luck, but actually, while I was building, I was searching every single night. I was like looking for particular pieces that would work for my house. And that one came up. And when I went to see it, I couldn't believe my eyes. It's an absolutely beautiful piece.
Is that the one that you have your artwork above? No, because that doesn't have a light. It's the drinks cabinet. It's over by one of the sliding doors. Yes. And free. Yeah. Perfect. And it's definitely, one of those, it's one of my favorite pieces in the house. And the fact that it was free is just better. Exactly. Sweeten the deal. Yeah. What's playing in the Black House right now, music-wise?
It's so strange. I'm actually playing a lot of classical music. So on Spotify, I have been typing in like most famous classical pieces, and it puts on a playlist of those. And I've just been really enjoying it. I've had it while I'm out kind of doing the really mundane things of weeding the garden this time of year and planting fresh new plants. And it's just been really, really nice to listen to, mix in a bit of CMAT. So I've been listening to Fleetwood Mac nonstop recently. I have a few of their vinyl records and I throw those on sometimes as well. But just, a bit of everything and anything.
I love Fleetwood Mac. I actually got to see them a couple of years back.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
I'd love to have gone.
I saw there was no Lindsay Buckingham, but Stephen Nicks was there and Christine McVie.
Stephen Nicks is,
amazing. Great concert. Thank you for sharing. So to close out the episode, we'll ask for your best take-home tip. What's one simple change someone can make this week that will instantly make their home feel more personal?
turn off the big light and turn on the lamps. Genuinely, like I think we mentioned it earlier, plants, artwork, original artwork is really where I would say try and lean into as well. Try and buy, if you can't afford it, because art is expensive, do it yourself. Or if you have a family member that is arty, ask them to paint a painting. And it's kind of lovely because, you know, someone will admire that painting, or you can look at it and think of the person that painted it for you. Or if you did it yourself, you have something to be proud of. Or if you can afford it, local Irish artists, you know, it will just add incredible color, incredible interest to your home. Ideally, it'll have some sort of sentimental meaning. So, you know, you picked it up for a particular birthday, or, you know, an anniversary or something like that. Cannot emphasize plants enough. You know, have 1 million of them if you can. And they'll just add softness, you know, and there's movement, you know, in the spaces. And of course, lamps, you know, I think in the evening time, I never turn on the big light. Like, even when I'm cooking, I have low lighting on. Now, it's probably quite dangerous, but it's still, I have music playing. I'm prepping whatever I'm having for dinner, and I can work away in it. And another just final tip is what I would say to anyone doing any building or renovation is communication is the number one top tip. If you have something in your head, don't describe it to the builder or the contractor. You need to show them an image. I think that's the biggest downfall. What I find in projects is, you know, the owner or the client will go to the builder and describe something, and the description that the builder takes from that is completely different to what the owner has in their mind. And really, no one is in the wrong at that point. Whereas if there's an image involved or drawings involved and everyone is on the same wavelength, then if there's a problem, it's not your problem to deal with, it's the builders. I
actually saw that's like one of your kind of core values at RJ O'Brien is like communication, because without it, you're just going to run into problems.
100%. And like, I think it's just like, it's so simple as having an example and sending it to that person so that everyone is very clear about what you're planning. And that's like part of the interior designer's role, is to communicate with the client, to communicate with the builder. And it's a collaboration. You know, you're working with everyone to try and create something special.
Yeah, totally. I think that's amazing, Dave. Thank you so much. And just before we finish up, just a little shout out to Emma Murphy, our amazing creative manager. So Emma had put us in touch with Dave a couple of years back, and we planned our first ever location shoot at your home. So it feels very full circle to have you here in our studio in Cork. So really delighted that you came down and you joined us today. And thank you so much for all of the amazing insights. I'm sure all of our listeners will be leaving this feeling really inspired.
Thanks so much, Laura. I really enjoy working with yourselves, and shout out to Emma as well. Yeah, she's fantastic.
Amazing. We're so blessed by the best. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on Style Stories with Easy Living Interiors. You can hear all the news, including links to more information, in the description area of this podcast. Please share our show with a friend who might enjoy it. Simply search Style Stories with Easy Living Interiors on Apple, Spotify or YouTube. This podcast is produced by justpod.io for Easy Living Interiors.